Hello, my name is Nathaniel Oliver, and I'm going to be speaking on Fitness U. This is an application for the project, and basically, I will be going over the software requirement specifications, the software design document, and the software test document. Um, this SRS, when I say SRS throughout the entire presentation, it will be an acronym for Software Requirement Specifications. SDD will stand for Software Design Document if I don't just say it outright, and I will just call the Software Test Document the test document. They will be used interchangeably. This product has been requested, and it will be a fitness application, as in the name, Fitness U, and there's going to be four different user interfaces, or well, there's going to be a user interface with four different buttons. Sorry. There's going to be four different trackers. There's going to be a calorie tracker, a nutrient tracker, a sleep tracker, and an exercise tracker. The calorie tracker will track, as I said, calories. There's going to be a calculator for the calorie and the nutrient tracker, and for the sleep tracker, there's going to be a calendar that will allow the user to, see the days and the past days that they had tracked their sleep. And the sorry, the exercise tracker will basically be a journal type of tracker where the user inputs data, and they basically will be able to retrieve old journal entries basically from previous days. The application will require 200 megabytes of disk space and 500 megabytes of RAM. This is sort of a precautionary, just in case the user does end up using the application for a long time, as the application will be completely offline. There will be no connection to a data there will be no connection to a server, so the data will be stored on the device. Thus, the 200 megabytes of disk space as sort of a headspace, just precautionarily. There will be translation for the region that it is currently being used in. Translation for words, numbers, language translation. Also the metric system will be integrated for places that use the metric system primarily. There will be an option to change it. And as I said earlier, there will be a calorie calculator and tracker, a nutrient tracker and calculator, an exercise tracker, and a sleep tracker. The application is going to operate on both iOS and Android, starting all the way back at iOS 6 to 26 and Android 4 to 16. So it's going to work on a lot of different devices, so long as those devices meet the requirements, the storage and memory requirement. If they meet the requirement, they can run it. And as such, the data will be able to save data input by the user. It'll be able to retrieve the data. It will allow users to manually track their sleep, their caloric intake, their nutrient intake, and exercises they've done. And as I said, it will have four different buttons, one for each tracker. It will have a calculator for two of the trackers, a calendar, and then it will also provide error messages for incorrect information input. It's also going to support real-time sync with the phone for date and time, so it's basically going to follow the phone's date and time to keep up with the date and time. To keep up with the date as each day that passes, there will be a new basically journal entry, and the sleep tracker will basically go over, and all of it will basically save the data for the day. When the app closes, it will save. When the app launches, it will be ready to be able to save information onto the device, and the information will be completely encrypted and stored 100% offline. And as such, let's continue onto the design document. As I said earlier, SDD if I don't say software design document, and SRS if I don't say requirement specifications. That's what I'm talking about. They may be used interchangeably. This is the architectural design of the application. Basically, simply put, we have the application, it launches, then we have a user interface, and then these four will be the four buttons. This will be four buttons, and each one will lead to the tracker and the calculator. And then once the user inputs information, it will save one for each different button, basically one for each different tracker. They will all be saved. Let's continue. Um, it's going to use arrays and lists for databases for each one that like saves the information. For the calculator, stacks and queues. For cleaner organization of numbers and actions. And basically, data is going to flow from the main interface, the trackers and calculators, to each of the save points. They will not interact. They will not receive data from any other feature. They're just basically one. If it's input into the nutrient tracker, it's staying within the nutrient tracker's saved information. Um, as for design constraints, most of this has already been covered already earlier. But for design constraints, the application will be limited by the device's capabilities. Only a lower limit. There's no upper limit, only a lower limit, just as the minimum requirements for the application to be downloaded and ran. The performance constraints also will be contained by the device. If it can't run smoothly, then it won't run smoothly on the device. If the device can't handle it smoothly, then it'll just run. It's just going to run not as well as if it were a better device that were able to handle it more smoothly with more resources. And as for safety and security, the only way that the application would be at risk is if the user's phone already has malware or something that can breach their data and access it without their consent, as it's completely an offline application. We have no access to their data. It's only their device that stores the data, and as such, it would just have to be if they were caught up in a malware attack, and at that point, then it's at the user's discretion, basically, of what to do. Continuing to the test document, this basically just outlines the different tests, a couple of different tests that we did on the device, on the software, just to track the trackers, the calendar, the tracker, the calendar. The tracker, the calendar, all the different trackers. The exercise, sleep, nutrient, and calorie trackers to test make sure that all the data is saved and can be redisplayed at a different date, and then track the calendars that they do work as a calendar properly, track the calendar to make sure it works as a calendar properly, and the calculators to make sure they work properly as calculators. Basically, this just identifies any problems that we may have had due to all the testing. The only thing was that on one of the trackers, the nutrient tracker, the data was not properly being displayed when it was being retrieved, but it was saved properly. Thus, we did fix it, and as a result, everything worked well. Thank you, and that is Fitness U.